Imagine a moment when everything feels lost, that overwhelming sense of being utterly alone, as if the light at the end of the tunnel has faded completely. Have you ever felt that profound despair? Many of us have walked through dark valleys where our faith is tested to its absolute limits. But what if I told you that in precisely those moments, when all hope seems to vanish, the divine can manifest in a way that defies all logic and understanding? What if a presence of pure light, a celestial being, could appear right before your eyes, in the most unexpected place, transforming your deepest sorrow into a peace that transcends all earthly comprehension? Today you are about to hear a true life account, a story so incredibly powerful it might just reignite the flame of your own faith and serve as a profound reminder that even in the depths of loneliness, you are truly never alone. Prepare to be deeply touched by a truth that many hold sacred in their hearts, a testament to divine love. This isn't just a story, it's an experience waiting to unfold. Before we dive into this incredible testimony, one that promises to fill your soul with peace and hope, perfect for a restful night's sleep, tell us, from what city and country are you watching us right now? Please share in the comments below. And if this message resonates with your spirit, we kindly ask you to bless us with your like and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring and comforting stories just like this one. This channel is truly an incredible sanctuary of faith and serenity for your daily life. That winter had undoubtedly been the heaviest and coldest of my entire existence. I'm not just referring to the biting wind that lashed against the windows outside or the snow that stubbornly covered the landscape in an immaculate white, but rather to a much deeper coldness, a frost that had settled inside my soul and stubbornly refused to melt. I was submerged in a period of overwhelming losses and relentless sequence of events that seemed to unfold without end. Each day brought with it a new layer of difficulty, a fresh challenge that crushed any last glimmer of hope I might have managed to cultivate. It felt as though life had become a powerful current and I, a small boat without oars, being dragged aimlessly, without the strength to fight against the tide. My health, once robust, now felt fragile. Every minor illness seemed to linger for weeks, draining my already limited energy. Bills piled up on the kitchen table, forming a threatening mountain that I had no idea how to climb, and the phone, when it rang, almost always brought yet another disheartening piece of news, a cruel reminder that reality was unforgiving. The sense of abandonment was almost a constant companion, a silent shadow that followed me through every room in the house, lying beside me at night and waking with me in the morning. I felt invisible to the world, as if people had forgotten me, or worse, as if they had never truly noticed me at all. Every dawn, the battle to simply drag myself out of bed was monumental, a Herculean effort that consumed the little strength I had left. My prayers, once a comfort and a safe harbor, now seemed to get lost in the void like whispers carried away by the wind, without echo, without answer, without any sign that they were being heard. The silence of the heavens was almost as deafening as the noise of my own internal anguish. The joy of living, once such a fundamental part of my being, had been completely replaced by a profound exhaustion and a sadness so dense it seemed impossible to dispel. I carried a weight in my chest that made every breath heavy, every movement slow and purposeless. My home, once filled with life and laughter, was now a silent sanctuary for my pain. Every object, every corner, seemed to echo memories of better times, making the contrast with my current reality even more unbearable. I avoided the mirror, not out of vanity, but because the reflection I saw was of someone I barely recognized. A faded, dull figure, with eyes that carried the burden of 1,000 sleepless nights and 1,000 unshed tears. Food tasted bland, the sun offered no warmth, and the songs that once brought me joy now sounded like mournful melodies. I found myself in a vicious cycle of discouragement, where every attempt to find a sliver of light was quickly suffocated by a new wave of adversity. Sleep, when it came, was shallow and disturbed by nightmares that only deepened my sense of helplessness. I was trapped, entangled in a web of circumstances that felt beyond my control, and resignation began to set in, a painful acceptance that perhaps things would never improve. My faith, which had been my foundation for so long, now seemed to waver, questioned with every new hardship. I no longer asked for grand solutions, just for a sign, a small glimpse that I had not been completely forgotten. I yearned for a relief that seemed never to come, an end to this silent pain that consumed me day after day, in every waking moment. It was on one of those endless nights when the clock seemed to have completely stopped, and the oppressive darkness outside perfectly mirrored the profound gloom within me. I was lying in my bed, staring blankly at the dark ceiling above. My tears having long since dried, but the searing pain persisted, sharp and relentlessly throbbing. My body felt utterly depleted, both physically and emotionally drained. Every desperate attempt to grasp onto a single flicker of hope proved futile, immediately crushed by the stark and unforgiving reality of my desolate situation. Sleep, the very escape I craved, was an impossibility. My mind raced, trapped in a relentless loop of worries and anxieties, leaving me unable to find a moment of peace. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think clearly. All I could do was feel the suffocating anguish that pressed down on me from all sides. My faith, which had once been a solid rock, my unwavering foundation, now felt as though it was crumbling beneath the sheer weight of so much affliction and despair. I questioned everything I had ever believed, desperately wondering why such immense suffering had become my constant companion, why this seemingly unending trial had been laid upon my path. My inner voice, once a source of comfort and guidance, had fallen completely silent, and all that remained was a hollow echo of my own profound and unbearable pain. This, I knew, was my absolute lowest point, an abyss of despair from which I could truly see no possible escape. I felt utterly helpless, stripped of all strength, with no fight left within me to even try to contend with the overwhelming darkness. The silence of the night was not peaceful. It was a heavy, suffocating blanket that amplified every ache, every pang of sorrow within me. Each breath felt like an arduous task, and my limbs felt heavy, weighed down by an invisible burden. My thoughts swirled in a chaotic vortex, replaying past failures and painting bleak pictures of an even bleaker future. I longed for oblivion, for the sweet release of unconsciousness, but it eluded me relentlessly, leaving me suspended in this agonizing state of hyper-awareness of my own suffering. The outside world was still, asleep in its tranquil slumber, yet inside me, a ferocious storm raged without end, tearing at the very fabric of my being. There was nowhere to turn, no one to speak to, just the stark, brutal reality of my isolation. My spirit felt broken, shattered into countless pieces, and the strength to even whisper another prayer seemed to have completely abandoned me. I was at the very edge, teetering on the brink of an emptiness so vast it threatened to consume me whole. The hours stretched into an eternity, each tick of the clock a painful reminder of my prolonged torment. My heart ached with a dull, persistent throb, a physical manifestation of the immense emotional burden I carried. I closed my eyes, but the darkness behind my eyelids offered no solace, only a deeper immersion into my inner turmoil. It was a night defined by the absence of everything good, a void where only despair resided, waiting to claim me entirely. I was truly at the end of my endurance. It was then, amidst the overwhelming silence of the bedroom, a silence that had felt so heavy and suffocating just moments before, that something subtle yet profoundly significant began to shift. It wasn't an abrupt sound, nor was it a distinct scent, but rather a profound alteration in the very atmosphere of the room. The air, which had previously felt so thick with despair and stagnant with my unspoken anguish, now seemed to vibrate with a gentle, almost imperceptible energy, a soft hum that resonated deep within my chest, replacing the frantic beating of my heart with a more steady, peaceful rhythm. A light, incredibly faint at first, a warm and ethereal glow began to form in the darkest corner of my room, near the window pane. It wasn't the harsh, intrusive light of a street lamp from outside, nor was it the sterile beam of an artificial lamp. This was a luminosity that appeared to originate from nowhere and everywhere all at once, calm and steadily growing. It diffused softly, expanding with an otherworldly grace, as if the very fabric of space itself was gently unfolding to reveal something extraordinary. I held my breath, not out of fear, but out of a profound and growing sense of awe, my gaze locked onto that expanding point of pure light. My heart, which had been pounding erratically with dread, began to slow its frantic pace, and a strange curiosity, interwoven with a prickle of something I couldn't quite identify, perhaps hope or a nascent wonder, slowly crept into my being, pushing back against the shadows of my despair. I remained absolutely still, my senses heightened, trying to rationalize what I was witnessing, yet simultaneously knowing that logic had no place here. Was I dreaming? Had the exhaustion finally taken its toll, conjuring illusions from my sleep-deprived mind? But the sensation was too real, too vivid, too utterly profound to be a mere figment of my imagination. The light continued to intensify, growing brighter with each passing second, yet it never became harsh or blinding. Instead, it possessed a gentle brilliance radiating a warmth that wasn't physical heat, but rather an emotional comfort that began to seep into every weary fiber of my being. It was a light that felt ancient and pure, a beacon of serenity in the desolate landscape of my recent existence. The subtle glow cast dancing shadows on the walls, making my familiar room feel transformed, imbued with an otherworldly presence. A profound peace, unlike anything I had experienced in years, began to settle over me, a stark and almost jarring contrast to the tempest of emotions that had raged within me just moments before. It was a stillness that was not empty, but full, brimming with an unspoken promise. I felt a gentle pressure, not physical contact, but as if the very air around me had become denser, charged with a benevolent energy. It was a sensation of being wrapped in an invisible embrace, completely safe and utterly cherished. My mind, which had been a chaotic maelstrom of worries, began to quiet, the incessant stream of negative thoughts gradually receding, replaced by a clarity and calm I hadn't known was possible. The growing light pulsated gently, in rhythm with this newfound tranquility that was steadily enveloping my spirit. It wasn't loud, it didn't announce its presence with fanfare, but its quiet emergence was more powerful than any thunderclap. This was not a trick of the eye, nor a fleeting hallucination. Every fiber of my being resonated with its truth. The despair that had held me captive for so long, the crushing weight of loneliness, the bitter taste of abandonment, all of it began to recede, pushed back by this encroaching, radiant peace. I was no longer alone. That much was clear even before I could fully comprehend the source of this wondrous light. The very air seemed to hum with a divine melody that only my soul could hear, a symphony of hope unfolding in the silence of my crisis. My previous torment now felt distant, a fading echo against the rising tide of this inexplicable, beautiful perception. As the gentle light steadily intensified, yet without ever becoming harsh or blinding, a distinct form began to intricately delineate itself within its very core. It wasn't defined by the sharp, familiar contours of a human body as we know it, but rather it was a magnificent silhouette composed of pure, radiant light, majestic and utterly serene. I couldn't discern a traditional face nor any specific features that might connect it to an earthly being. Yet I felt an indescribable, profound presence of overwhelming goodness and immense power emanating from it. This luminous form, hovering gracefully just a few feet from where I lay, radiated such an intense and unblemished purity that the lingering shadows in my room seemed to actively recoil, dissipating completely as if banished by its sheer brilliance, dissolving the very darkness that had so thoroughly enveloped my spirit moments before. There were no visible wings, no discernible garments, no flowing robes that one might expect from traditional imagery. It was simply the manifest presence of light and pure energy, a living, breathing essence of divine illumination. I remained completely still, frozen in a state of profound shock. Yes, but a shock that was entirely devoid of any fear. Instead, it was infused with an overwhelming and deep reverence, a sense of awe that bordered on the sacred. It was as if every fiber of my being, every cell of my body, instinctively recognized an ancient truth, an unbroken primordial connection to the magnificent entity that had materialized before my eyes. The profound peace that emanated from that luminous figure was so utterly overwhelming that all my accumulated pains, all my crushing worries, and every single burden I had carried for so long seemed to instantly diminish, becoming utterly insignificant and fading into oblivion in the face of such unparalleled grandeur and pure, unadulterated holiness. The light wasn't static. It pulsed gently, a rhythmic, soft glow that seemed to breathe with its own celestial life, expanding and contracting with an almost imperceptible undulation. Each subtle shift in its radiance deepened the profound sense of tranquility that now filled the entire space around me, replacing the suffocating despair that had clung to me for what felt like an eternity. My mind, which had been a relentless tempest of anxieties and dark thoughts, became remarkably clear, unburdened by its usual torment. There was a warmth that spread through me, not a physical heat, but a comforting warmth that settled deep in my chest, soothing my weary heart and calming my restless spirit. It was a sensation of being utterly seen, profoundly understood, and unconditionally loved, all without a single word being uttered. The very air around the angel's presence felt lighter, purer, almost crystalline, filled with a sweet, subtle fragrance that was impossible to pinpoint yet undeniably heavenly. It felt as though the entire room had been transformed into a sacred space, a sanctuary where only purity and peace could exist. My earlier agony, the biting cold of loneliness and the bitter taste of abandonment were not just lessened. They felt banished, replaced by an inner glow that mirrored the magnificent light before me. I found myself simply gazing, not daring to move, afraid that any sudden motion might shatter this ethereal vision. My eyes, though wide open, perceived the light not just visually, but almost spiritually, absorbing its essence directly into my soul. It was a silent communication, a profound assurance that resonated with every beat of my newfound peaceful heart. The figure, though without discernible features, conveyed an intelligence and compassion that were boundless, an ancient wisdom that transcended earthly understanding. It was clear that this was not a dream, not a hallucination born of exhaustion. The reality of its presence was undeniable, a truth that permeated my very core. The light seemed to extend beyond the physical confines of the room, suggesting an endless source, a connection to something infinitely vast and glorious. Every moment it remained, the peace deepened, the connection strengthened, and the sense of being utterly protected became absolute. It was a manifestation of pure divine love, a radiant testament to a truth far greater than anything I had ever conceived. My entire being was filled with an unshakable certainty that I was in the presence of a true celestial messenger, sent directly from the highest heavens. The sheer magnitude of its benevolence was breathtaking, reducing all my previous suffering to mere dust in the wind. The figure was utterly beautiful in its luminous simplicity, an embodiment of grace and unblemished goodness. It was a silent sermon, a visual prayer, an undeniable sign that I was not forgotten, not forsaken. The energy radiating from it was incredibly soft, yet incredibly powerful, capable of dispelling any lingering shadows of despair that tried to cling to me. This was the moment I had unknowingly yearned for, the ultimate answer to prayers I hadn't even had the strength to whisper. Every detail, though undefined in human terms, spoke volumes to my spirit. It was a visitation of light, a tangible embrace of divine comfort, marking a profound turning point in the silent, solitary night of my despair. Although not a single audible word was uttered, no sound waves reached my ears, the message from the angel was as clear and undeniable as if it had been whispered directly into the deepest chambers of my soul. It wasn't conveyed through sentences or phrases as humans speak them, but rather through a profound and utterly unmistakable certainty that immediately filled every fiber of my being. I understood with a conviction that resonated deep within my very core that I was not alone in my suffering and that in truth I had never ever been alone. An overwhelming wave of pure, unconditional love enveloped me completely, a warmth that seemed to wash away every last vestige of pain and despair that had so cruelly afflicted me for what felt like an eternity. It was as if the divine presence before me, through its sheer being, silently communicated, "I see you. I hear you. You are deeply loved, and you are being watched over, cared for, even in your darkest moments." A profound peace, a tranquility I had never dared to dream of experiencing before, instantly flooded every corner of my existence. A calm so profound it transcended any earthly problem, any human sorrow, any physical discomfort. I knew in that very instant, with an absolute and unwavering clarity, that every single trial I had faced, every hardship I had endured, had a purpose, a divine reason beyond my current understanding, and that there was a magnificent, benevolent plan unfolding, even when my limited human eyes simply could not perceive it. It was a silent yet incredibly potent guarantee that my faith, though previously shaken, was not in vain, and that hope was an unyielding flame, a divine spark that would never truly extinguish. The understanding that washed over me was not intellectual. It was a knowing of the heart, a spiritual revelation that bypassed all logic and doubt. It was the feeling of being held in an embrace so vast and so loving that all my burdens, all my anxieties simply melted away, leaving behind a lightness I hadn't felt in years. The clarity that settled upon my mind was like a fresh, cool breeze sweeping through a dusty room, clearing away the cobwebs of confusion and despair. I suddenly understood that the silence from heaven I had perceived was not an absence but a presence, a watchful, loving stillness that had been there all along, waiting for this moment of revelation. It was a moment of absolute truth, where every lie I had told myself about being forsaken or forgotten dissolved into nothingness. The love I felt was pure, limitless, and unearned, a gift from a source beyond comprehension, proving that I was valued beyond measure. This peace wasn't merely the absence of turmoil. It was a profound foundational tranquility, a deep wellspring of calm that had been uncovered within my own spirit. The certainty that I was watched over, that my cries had been heard even when I thought they were lost, brought tears to my eyes, not tears of sadness but of immense relief and overwhelming gratitude. It was the tears of a soul finally coming home after a long, arduous journey. The message permeated every cell, every memory, every future aspiration, reshaping my entire perception of life and my place within it. It affirmed that my connection to the divine was unbreakable, an eternal bond that suffering could not sever. This profound understanding brought with it a sense of quiet joy, a gentle blossoming of hope where only barren despair had resided. The feeling was so overwhelmingly real, so utterly profound, that it left no room for doubt or questioning. It was an undeniable spiritual imprint, a sacred truth etched into the very essence of my being. My fear dissipated completely, replaced by a quiet courage and a newfound resolve. I felt renewed, reborn in a way that words struggled to describe. The immense peace instilled within me during that sacred interaction continues to be a guiding light, a constant reminder of the unwavering love and protection that surrounds me, even when life presents its inevitable challenges. This message was a lifeline, a divine affirmation that pulled me back from the brink of despair and set my feet upon a path illuminated by unwavering hope and profound faith. It was the ultimate comfort, a spiritual balm for my wounded soul, ensuring that I would never again feel truly alone. The overwhelming sensation of peace and the profound relief that enveloped me were both instantaneous and incredibly deep, as if a monumental weight, accumulated over years of suffering, had suddenly been lifted from my shoulders. I felt an unprecedented lightness within my body and a crystal-clear clarity in my mind, states I hadn't experienced in what felt like an entire lifetime. My muscles, which had been perpetually tense with anxiety, now relaxed completely, and the constant knot in my stomach untangled itself, allowing me to take the first truly deep, unlabored breath in what felt like an eternity. The luminous presence of the angel, that magnificent being of pure light, began to diminish gradually, gracefully receding back to the very point from which it had so miraculously emerged. It didn't vanish abruptly but rather faded with an ethereal slowness, dissolving completely back into the air until only the familiar darkness of the room remained. Yet that darkness was now fundamentally different, imbued with a sacred afterglow, a palpable sense of peace that lingered like a sweet, comforting fragrance. No physical mark was left behind, no tangible evidence for the skeptical eye, but the indelible imprint etched upon my soul was so profound, so utterly transformative, that it surpassed any physical manifestation. The image, or more accurately, the profound sensation of that pure and luminous presence remained vividly etched in my heart and mind, a constant, comforting memory. I was no longer weeping, nor was I gripped by that suffocating anguish that had held me captive for so long. Instead, a serene calm had settled within me, a deep gratitude that swelled from the very core of my being, and a renewed, unshakable certainty in divine protection, and an all-encompassing love that filled every void. I knew, with an absolute conviction that transcended all doubt, that I had just witnessed something truly sacred, an encounter of heavenly origin, and that powerful experience resonated through every single cell of my being, vibrating with a truth that words could barely capture. The despair that had consumed me, the physical ache in my chest from prolonged sadness, the mental fog that had clouded my every thought, all of it had been replaced by an inexplicable joy and a profound sense of lightness. It was as if every burden I had carried had been gently lifted, not just from my spirit, but from my physical form as well. My lungs felt expanded, my vision seemed sharper, and the very air I breathed felt cleaner, purer. The transition from utter hopelessness to profound peace was so rapid, so complete, that it felt like an instantaneous healing, a spiritual mending that reached into the deepest, most wounded parts of my soul. I lay there for a long time after the light had faded, not wanting to move, fearing that any sudden shift might break the spell of this newfound tranquility. I simply basked in the lingering warmth of the angel's presence, absorbing every last drop of its peaceful essence. My mind was quiet, completely free of the ceaseless chatter of worry and anxiety that had plagued me for so long. This wasn't just a moment of peace. It was a revelation. It was the moment I realized that even when I felt most abandoned, I was actually being watched over, guided, and loved with an intensity I couldn't have imagined. The world outside the window might still be dark, but an internal light had been ignited within me, one that no external circumstance could ever extinguish. The silence in the room was no longer oppressive. It was sacred, a space where the divine had truly touched the earthly. The experience left me with a sense of immense clarity about my life's journey, understanding that even the hardest trials can lead to the most profound spiritual breakthroughs. It was a testament to God's unfailing love and His constant presence, even when we feel Him furthest away. The profound impact of that visitation fundamentally changed the fabric of my reality, leaving an imprint of hope and an unwavering belief in miracles that continues to guide me to this very day. I felt utterly transformed, a new creation emerging from the ashes of my former despair, touched by the eternal. Since that transformative night, my life has, indeed, never been the same. That apparition of pure light, that ineffable touch of peace and divine presence, not only restored my hope but fundamentally altered my perception of life, of my struggles, and of the very purpose behind each challenge. Earthly difficulties didn't magically vanish, of course. The problems I faced before were still there, but the way I confronted them, the manner in which I processed them, and, crucially, the strength with which I faced them, changed completely. My faith, once shaken to the point of collapse, wasn't merely restored, it was rebuilt upon a foundation more solid than ever, strengthened in a way no previous trial had managed. It's a depth of conviction no human words can fully describe, an unshakable certainty that has rooted itself into every fiber of my being. I understood, with a clarity that transcends reason, that even in life's darkest valleys, in the hours of greatest solitude and despair, the divine and angelic presence is always with us, watchful, guarding us with unconditional love, and offering a comfort the world simply cannot provide. That singular experience was not a mere event. It was a revelation that re-signified every past pain and prepared me for every future challenge. It taught me that hope isn't a fleeting feeling, but a daily choice, a conscious decision to seek the light even when darkness seems total. And God's love, that love manifests in the most unexpected and miraculous ways, breaking through all the barriers of our human understanding. It's a living promise, a silent testimony that we are loved beyond our capacity to ask or even imagine. The peace that was infused within me that night remains with me, a constant balm for any wound, a vivid reminder of divine benevolence. It allows me to face each day with a serenity that was once unimaginable, knowing that no matter how strong the wind blows, there's an invisible anchor holding me steady. My story, which I humbly share with you, isn't just about an encounter with an angel. It's about the rediscovery of faith, about finding light when all lights seem to have gone out, and about the certainty that miracles do happen. I pray that, upon hearing this account, the flame of your own faith may be rekindled with the same intensity, and that the same peace granted to me may flood your heart. May you feel God's loving presence by your side, guarding your steps, comforting your soul, and illuminating your path, especially in moments when you feel most vulnerable. Remember, you are never, ever alone. The divine light is always there, patient and persistent, finding a way to reach us even in the deepest darkness of our night. May this story, this testimony of divine grace, serve as an invitation for you to look at your own life with new eyes, perceiving the small and large manifestations of love and hope that surround you. May it bring you the comfort you need to fall asleep in peace, knowing that you are under the protection of a love greater than all. May your dreams be light, and your soul serene. This channel exists to be a refuge of faith, a place where hope is renewed, and God's presence is celebrated through real and emotional stories. Let this peace envelop you now. Sleep in peace, with the certainty that you are infinitely loved and guided.